We're back, folks. Let's continue to escape. Junpei stopped short, nearly tripping over the next stair, and looked. It wasn't just one person he'd seen. On the landing to the left of the stairs, there were 4 people staring at him. Oh, hang on. And on the right side, 3 more. All told, there were 7 of them. It looked as though they had been on their way down the stairs. They'd stopped short when they saw Junpei, their eyes wide. He'd done the same, of course, and now they stood there staring at one another. Junpei didn't move, one foot placed awkwardly on the next step, in the middle of a stride. Who were these people? This entire interaction lasted only a matter of seconds. The woman spoke to Junpei, and time began to move again. I guess there's another one of us now. The woman was dressed, Junpei thought, rather like a dancer. Like maybe that's what we'd tag her dialogue with. Her clothes covered very little, and her prodigious jewelry little more. Hey, you, come on! Hurry! With no further ceremony, she ran, straight past Junpei, and toward the doors behind him. The sudden proximity of a woman with such striking assets left Junpei momentarily stunned, but the others wasted no time and quickly followed the strange woman. The first to pass Junpei was a younger man with silver hair. He threw a quick glance in Junpei's direction as he ran, muttering, "Huh, one of us, huh?" Following him was an older man, his face calm and without fear. Soft wrinkles sprouted from his eyes, and he came close enough as he passed for Junpei to see wisps of gray in his hair. His composure and shock of hair struck Junpei as rather like that of an elderly lion. "Going up won't do you any good. There are 2 doors, but neither of them will open." The next to speak was a girl with pink hair and a high voice. "Come on! Aren't you coming? You gotta hurry!" Her small hand was wrapped around the wrist of another man. His eyes were closed, almost as though he were sleeping. His features were graceful, almost serene, and he was dressed rather elegantly for someone his age. Something about his posture seemed very refined, and Junpei couldn't help feeling he was noble and dignified somehow. He'd certainly never seen one, but this man seemed like what Junpei had always imagined a prince would be like. "That's 9 of us, then. All of the cards are in hand." What does "all of the cards are in hand" mean, he wondered. Junpei opened his mouth to ask what the other man had meant, but the girl with pink hair rushed past him, and they were gone. He turned just in time to see 2 more people running toward him. One of them had hair like a bird's nest, and looked as though a stiff breeze might topple him. And the other was a veritable mountain of a man. The scrawny one said nothing, and scuttled past Junpei as though he were running from something. "Hey, what in the hell are you just standing there for? Didn't you hear him?" The doors on A deck are no good. We gotta check the doors on B deck. Got it? Now go!" Before he had a chance to respond, the man laid a massive hand on Junpei's shoulder. With no more effort than Junpei would have used to brush aside a fly, the man shoved him out of the way. Whoa! Thrown off balance by the man and recent events, it took Junpei a few steps to get his bearings. He finally regained his balance and looked up at what the other 7 had been running toward. There were 2 pairs of large iron doors set into the wall in front of them. They looked quite sturdy, and each had handles jutting from them. Written across the surface of each door in red paint was a number. The door on the right had a 4, and the door on the left had a 5. They're the same. The guy Junpei had decided to call Silver was mumbling to himself. "The room I woke up in had a number on the door just like that." You too, eh? With an arched eyebrow, the lion looked over at Silver. My cell was the same. A number upon the door. I opened it, ran down the hallway outside, and found myself in the rather grand room full of stairs, as I suspect did the rest of you. It was as though the floodgates had been opened. They all began to talk at once. Me too. I did too. Yeah, a door with a number on it. It soon became clear that each one of them had awoken in a room with a locked door and solved a puzzle to escape. They'd all ended up in the same room, almost as though they'd been guided there. Yes, we all saw the same thing. That's not important. We need to hurry. You think I don't know that, lady? Before the dancer had time to finish, Silver was already running. He grabbed hold of the door labeled 5 and pulled. However, fuck! It's not opening! This damn thing won't even budge! Move! You're in the way! The mountain grabbed Silver's shoulder and tossed him aside. His path cleared, he took a few steps back, then threw himself at the door. Once, twice, 3 times. A lady. 4 times. The door shook as his body slammed into it, but showed no signs of breaking or opening. The mountain threw himself at the door again. Junpei turned toward door 4. Next to the door, on the wall, was a small box. It looked just like the one that he'd seen in his room next to that door. If it was the same, then this door was likely locked as well. Still, he had to check. Junpei grabbed a handle and threw all of his weight into it. Gah! It was locked as tight as the door next to it, as he'd suspected. Damn it! Junpei punched the door. It did not respond. Were these the only doors, he wondered. He'd barely finished the thought when the C-deck plate he'd passed on his way up sprang unbidden to his mind. His body moved before he had time to think. Junpei turned and ran back toward the stairs. He had scarcely taken a step when, at the top of the stairs, next to an ornate clock embedded in the wall, he saw a person. It was a girl. She looked to be the same age as Junpei. He froze, unable to look away from her face. He wasn't confounded by her beauty or something equally silly. No, there was another reason he couldn't take his eyes off the girl. Junpei had seen her somewhere before. He couldn't quite remember where, but he knew he'd met her before. The girl, too, stared at Junpei, similarly stunned. Her response suggested she'd seen him before as well. Without saying a word, Junpei walked slowly toward her. She didn't move. It was almost as though she was held in place by some sort of magic spell. As Junpei stepped onto her landing, the spell broke. No sooner had he set his foot down than the whole ship shook a second time. Ah! The quake caught the girl unprepared and she fell. Moving on instinct, Junpei leapt to catch her. Or so he thought. Her face was far closer than it should have been, mere inches from his own. He was flat on his back, and she had landed squarely on top of him. The girl seemed as confused as he did, and her face suggested she still hadn't fully recovered from seeing him. For a moment that seemed to stretch for a very long time, they stared at one another. The ship stopped shaking. Everything was quiet. Water could be heard from the bottom of the ship, lapping faintly at walls and ceilings, but eventually that faded as well. The silence was complete, a thick, muffling blanket. At last, the girl opened her mouth. Oh my gosh, is that you, Jumpy? Jumpy. Jumpy. Her words echoed through Junpei's head, and suddenly his memory returned. Akane? Why hadn't he realized it before? The girl was Akane Kurashiki. She and Junpei had been friends in childhood. They'd gone to elementary school together for 6 years. But What was she doing on this ship? Her soft eyes were only inches away from his own. He could feel the warmth of her face. Feelings he'd thought long forgotten began to work their way to the surface. He could feel his face heating up. At that moment, the speaker crackled to life and a cold, eerie voice filled the room. Welcome aboard. I welcome you all from the bottom of my heart to this, my vessel. With the voice's invasion, the spell between Junpei and Akane was broken, and all hints of burgeoning romance instantly forgotten. They hurriedly untangled themselves from one another and struggled to their feet. Their 7 companions had heard the voice as well, and many of their faces had gone pale. They looked around frantically, desperate to locate the source of the voice. At last, they found it, a speaker set in the ceiling. I am Zero, the captain of this ship. I am also the person who invited you here. The voice was harsh, obscured occasionally by the crackle of static. But Junpei recognized it. How could he have forgotten it? It was the same voice he had heard from the man in the gas mask. Hey, asshole, what the hell is this? Come on out here, I want to get a look at you. What do you mean to do to us? I mean to have you participate in a game. Some of you I know are familiar with this game, the Nonary game. It is a game where you will put your life on the line. Nonary game? What the hell's that? The voice continued, implacable. Implaceable? Implacable? I never quite knew how to pronounce that word. The rules of the Nonary game can be found upon your persons. They are simple rules. Read them. Nonary game? Hey, there's something in my pocket. Check this out. Silver reached into his pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper. The rest of them reached into their own pockets and pulled out similar slips of paper. Junpei followed suit and dug into the pocket of his pants. You want to know what he found? That was a slip of paper. He felt the telltale crumple of paper, slightly damp from his earlier ordeal. Hey, I got one too. Then it would seem Zero has seen fit to grace us each with a letter. Would you mind terribly reading it to us, young man? His request had been delivered to Junpei, who, after a short moment of surprise, did as he'd been asked. On this ship, you will find a handful of doors emblazoned with numbers. We will call them the numbered doors. The doors in front of you are a pair of the same. The key to opening these numbered doors are the numbered bracelets that each of you possess. Should you total the numbers on your numbered bracelets and find that the digital root of that number is equal to the number of that door, the door will open. Only those who have opened the door may pass through. There are, however, limits. Only 3 to 5 people can pass through one numbered door. All those who enter must leave, and all who enter must contribute. Bracelet, Junpei figured, had to mean the bulky thing on his wrist. He glanced around. It looked like everyone else had one as well, and had come to much the same conclusion. The purpose of the game is simple. Leave this ship alive. It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. Junpei had reached the end of the letter. There was a long moment of silence, and then the speaker crackled to life once more. There is one last thing I must tell you. As you have no doubt surmised, this ship has begun to sink. On April 14th, 1912, the famous ocean liner Titanic crashed into an iceberg. Called it! After remaining afloat for 2 hours and 40 minutes, it sank beneath the waters of the North Atlantic. I will give you more time. 9 hours. That is the time you will be given to make your escape. The voice finished, and the speaker went silent. The sound of a bell tolling echoed through the hall. It came from the dance hall adjacent to the stairwell. It took those assembled on the stairs mere moments to trace the sound to an antique clock embedded in the wall. 7, 8, 9. The sound of the 9th bell faded away. The 10th never came. That meant the time was 9 o'clock. Most likely 9 o'clock in the evening. When Junpei had peered out the window of his cell, he'd seen nothing but blackness. But when Junpei peered out the window of his cell, there was demonstrably a ton of water there. Would you be able to... No, there's desktop wallpapers. You'd be able to see the sunshine. But he didn't. He'd see nothing but blackness. It had to be nighttime. Right? Right. If that was the case, they would need to escape by 6 a.m. the following day. Now it is time. Let our game begin. I wish you all the best of luck. The speaker went silent and did not speak again. Silver yelled at the speaker with language coarse enough to embarrass a sailor, but the rest of Junpei's companions were silent, deep in thought. Junpei, too, was consumed by his thoughts. There was a great deal he didn't understand. Who was Zero? What was the Nonary game? Why had he chosen to make them part of it? Was he a criminal who took delight in playing with his victims? Or did he have some other purpose? And why had Junpei been chosen as part of this insane game? Why had any of them been chosen? But one question was foremost in his mind. Akane. They hadn't seen one another since elementary school. Why had she appeared now? Coincidence? No, that seemed impossible. There had to be a reason. He didn't know what it might be, but there had to be a reason. Very well. The lion's voice seemed oddly loud in the silence. Standing around here won't do us any good. Best we get moving, don't you think? Get moving? Are you planning to open the numbered doors? Hey, wait! Don't tell me you're actually going to do what this Zero says. No, that's not what I mean. The lion shook his head, mildly annoyed. I'm saying let's find another way. After all, we haven't really examined this place yet. What? Their separate investigations finished, all 9 people returned to where they'd left one another. You missed a really good opportunity there to say all 9 persons. I know it wouldn't have flowed right, but it would have been on brand. All 9 persons returned to where they'd left one another. The result of all their work was nothing. They were completely sealed in. Their hard work had not gone completely to waste, however. They had learned a number of things as they'd scoured the parts of the ship they could reach. It seemed that they were confined to decks A through C. C deck was as far down as they would be able to go, however. The reason being that D deck was completely submerged. Strangely, however, the water had risen no higher than D deck. The flow seemed to have been stopped somehow, as evidenced by the surface of the water on D deck, which was as smooth as glass. The prince knelt down and gently drew his hand across it. Perhaps this Zero fellow has used some sort of remote control to seal a watertight door lower down. He said that our time limit was 9 hours. In other words, this water won't rise for 9 hours. Then you're saying we won't sink till then? Well, that may be a little too optimistic. No point to wishful thinking. There were 3 metal doors on C deck. A single door stood off to the side, with 2 more on the wall facing the central staircase. None of them had numbers or verification devices. They were, however, locked like the other doors. No matter how much they pushed and shoved, the doors refused to move. The mountain and the lion threw themselves against them a few times, but to no avail. The door in the back had a keyhole. Just above it was a strange mark in the shape of a circle surrounding a dot. Not that strange of a mark, if I'm offering ongoing commentary. It will be. There were 2 other doors on C deck as well, but it was clear they were elevators, as each had a button next to it with an upside-down triangle. They tried pushing the button. No response. Apparently there was no power running to the elevators. To the left of the elevator doors was a card reader. The card reader also had a strange mark on it. This one is strange. It looked like a lowercase h with a dash drawn across the upper stem of the H. Junpei stared at it for a while. This is the symbol of Saturn. It's an astrological symbol. Then, the mark on the other door, I think that was the sun symbol. They had seen the same symbols on A deck. There was a door on either side of the stairs. The one on the left had a keyhole with a similar symbol engraved in it. This is an Earth symbol. The horizontal line symbolizes the equator, and the vertical one represents the prime meridian. Junpei looked up at the ceiling. There was a great circle cut in it, perhaps for a skylight or a glass dome, but it had been filled with a gargantuan metal plate. The metal looked very solid. Anything short of an explosive charge was unlikely to damage it. There were several windows along both sides of the ship, or at least there had been. They too were covered with metal plates. In other words, we're trapped. All the exits go nowhere. Junpei was not happy. The girl with pink hair spoke up. Well, I'm sure they go somewhere. We just can't open them. Then the mountain spoke. You don't know that. For all we know, they just open into walls or take us in circles. The prince did not agree. No, I'm sure they go somewhere. Otherwise, what point would there be? And we can open them. Well, 2 of them at least. You mean the numbered doors? All eyes turned toward the doors with numbers on them. The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Hey, wait a minute. I think I said this earlier, but I don't think we should do that. The dancer moved in front of the doors as if to block them. We'd have to be crazy to open these doors. If we do that, we're doing exactly what Zero wants us to do. Suddenly, everyone began to speak at once. I agree. I don't. That's a terrible idea. We should keep going. We should stay here. We don't have any other way to open any of these doors. We should just wait. Someone's bound to come find us. We don't have time for that. In 8.5 hours, the ship is going to sink. The clamor of voices made it next to impossible to determine who was saying what, which is why all those voices sounded the same. Their arguments grew more and more intense, until people were shouting and screaming at one another. I've not heard it phrased that way. It's always screaming and shouting for me. An aside. Junpei had remained silent, but at last he could take no more. Hey! Shut up! They fell silent, and all eyes turned to Junpei. He felt each stare burning into him, but he refused to flinch. Before we try and decide where we're going to go, there's something else we ought to do. What's that? We need to exchange information. We don't know anything about each other. I want to know who you guys are. Who you are, where you came from, why you ended up here. Don't tell me you aren't curious, too. They were silent. Some of them looked the other way, or bit their lip, crossed their arms, and stared at the ceiling. But one of them spoke up. It was Akane. I agree. I think Jumpy is right. Jumpy? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about him. I just call him Jumpy. His name is Junpei. She pointed toward Junpei. We're childhood friends. We went to the same elementary school. Wait, stop! Don't tell us stuff we didn't ask you about. Zero's probably watching us right now. What are you gonna do if he's listening? Would that be bad? Hell yeah, it would. We don't know how much that bastard knows about us. Maybe he just picked a bunch of random people to kidnap. If that is the case, then it'd be dangerous for us to let him know too much. If Zero knows who we are, he could go after our families. Maybe he'd tell us he had them to get us to do stuff, you know? But we still need to know what our names are. It's going to be hard to talk to each other if we don't have names. Alright, then why don't we have code name? To him, apparently, it seemed the obvious solution. Code name? Yeah, we'll each pick something. Like, I'll be 7. 7? Why are you 7? It seemed a fair question. The mountain stuck out his left arm. Because this bracelet number says 7. Oh, I get it. Yeah, that's a good idea. He smirked. Alright, I'm gonna be Santa. Any of you chumps know Japanese? No? Well, San means 3, so I'll be Santa. You know, like Santa Claus. Fits, don't you think? Then your bracelet number. Yeah, it's got a 3 on it. Good job, Grandpa. Just like the mountain had done, Silver thrust out his left hand. Sure enough, the face of his bracelet read 3. Very well then. I'll go next, shall I? My bracelet number is 1. Given that, I think Ace seems appropriate. I'll be Lotus then. As I'm sure you all know, it has 8 petals, which means, of course, that my bracelet number is 8. I would appreciate it if you would call me Snake. My bracelet number is 2. Since Ace has chosen cards, then I choose dice. Snake eyes, clearly. Which is particularly relevant given that I am blind. Blind? Really? He'd kept his eyes closed during their entire ordeal, which had suggested something strange, but to hear it said so casually, it was something of a surprise. Everyone seemed a little nervous at the prince's proclamation. No one seemed to know how to react to it. There was one person, however, who didn't seem to be surprised in the least. The girl with pink hair. I want to be Clover. You know, like a 4-leaf clover. Good luck, right? Looking almost bored, she held out her left hand. The face of her bracelet showed the number 4. They'd come around to Junpei. He held out his bracelet. Alright, my number's 5, so my code name is gonna be... Well, I have one. It's not like there's any point to it now. The dancer cut him off mid-sentence. I mean, we all know your name already. You're Junpei. Uh-oh. They all nodded. Akane stepped forward nervously. Then you should all call me by my name too. Because, I mean, it doesn't seem fair to Jumpy. You're thinking it's not cool for you to hide your name after you told us his? Akane fidgeted awkwardly. Junpei decided he had to do something. What's your bracelet number? It's 6. She hesitated for a moment, then held out her left hand. As she'd claimed, the bracelet's face showed a 6. Junpei looked at it for a moment and thought. Alright then, why don't we call you June? June? Yeah, you know, it's the 6th month of the year. So you're June. Jumpy. Akane kneaded her hands and looked up at Junpei uncertain. He smiled back at her reassuringly. Are you good with that? She thought about it for a few more minutes, then seemed to come to a decision and gave Junpei a small nod. Their names decided, Junpei ran over them quickly in his head. 1 was Ace. 2 was Snake. 3 was Santa. 4 was Clover. 5 was Junpei's number. Akane was 6, and Junpei had given her the code name of June. 7 was 7, and 8 was Lotus. That meant 8 of them, including Junpei, had revealed their bracelet numbers. But there was still one person left. He was the man with glasses and hair like a bird's nest. He hadn't said anything since they'd met on the stairs, and he didn't look like the sort of person who was inclined to conversation. His skin was pale, his breathing was heavy, and he was soaked with nervous sweat. His behavior seemed very suspicious, or perhaps simply emotionally unstable. It was difficult to tell. Whatever the case, it seemed clear that he had only a fingertip's worth of a grip on his sanity. The girl with pink hair, Clover, walked up to him slowly. She put her hands on her hips and eyed him suspiciously. "What number are you?" He didn't answer. His bloodshot eyes twitched from person to person. His breath came in hot pants. I'm gonna let that one land for a second. Good spot for a break. His breath came in hot pants. All right. "Hey, I'm talking to you." The man licked his dry lips with a shaky tongue and spoke with a voice like old paper. Isn't it obvious? There are 9 people here. And you know who numbers 1 through 8 are. I'm the only one left." "So you're 9? Yeah. He extended a trembling arm. The bracelet did indeed say 9. Clover looked at it contemptuously. "What's your code name?" Code name? "What do you want us to call you?" "We all made up names, you should too." I don't need one." "Why not?" "Because I'm not going to stay here with you." He took a shuddering breath and exhaled. Clover looked at him with something very like disgust. "You've got some sort of plan?" I do." "Yeah? What's that?" "You sure you want to know?" "Yeah." "All right. Let me show you. I'm going to do this." Ah! By the time they realized what he was doing, it was too late to stop him. The man's body moved like a snake's. In the blink of an eye, he had slid around behind her and wrapped his arm around her waist. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Silver, Santa, leapt forward toward Clover and the 9th man. He was halfway there when... "Stay back!" Suddenly, the man's hand dove into his pocket. It came back out with a knife. A pocket knife. From his pocket. A knife in his pocket. Pocket knife. He held it to Clover's pale, quivering neck. "If you get any closer, I'll cut her open." Santa skidded to a halt. He snarled at the scrawny man with the knife and gritted his teeth. "Yes, that's right." The man's smile was neither friendly nor reassuring. Sweat poured down his neck, soaking the collar of his shirt. "Clover, are you all right?" The prince, Snake's voice sounded oddly concerned. "Yeah, I'm fine." Her voice shook, making her words even less convincing. "What the hell are you trying to do?" "I told you. This is my plan." "What are you gonna do to her, you sick son of a bitch?" "Don't worry. I'm not going to do anything to her. If she just does what I tell her to, I'll let her go." He started to move backwards slowly, keeping his grip on Clover. Keeping their distance, Junpei and the others followed. Eventually, the man reached the wall. He gave a start as his back touched it, then glanced around quickly and spoke. "Verify." "Huh?" "The left. Look on your left." Do you see the device on the wall? Place your hand on the scanner panel, the round part. What if I don't? The man's nostrils flared and he looked like he was about to choke. Are you an idiot? What do you think? I could slit your throat right now. I'll kill you if I have to. All I need is your bracelet. Just do it. Do it now. Press the knife against Clover's neck, hard. Slowly, she stretched her left hand out toward the device. Her back was to it, and she had to feel around for a moment before she found the circular panel. It made a cold electronic noise, and on the display above her hand, an asterisk appeared. So that's how it works, Junpei thought to himself. By placing one's palm on what the ninth man had called the scanner panel, the user's bracelet number would be entered into the device. Should you total the numbers on your numbered bracelets and find that the digital root of that number is equal to the number of that door, the door will open. Junpei shifted his eyes to the door itself. The number on it was 5. The ninth man seemed to know a little more about the device's operation than he should. How had he known exactly what to do? Good, you're done. Next. His bloodshot eyes crept from person to person until finally they stopped on the lion, Ace. You, right? You're the one with the number 1 bracelet, right? Yes, I am. So? Then you're next. Just verify your number like this little brat did. What are you doing? Do it. Don't you care what happens to her? Okay, just calm down. Ace held up his hands, palms out. The ninth man jerked his chin toward the device. Slowly, cautiously, Ace moved toward the device. After what seemed like an agonizing eternity, he reached it. Now, verify. Ace nodded and placed his hand on the scanner panel. The device beeped again, and a second asterisk appeared. Now the device had Clover and Ace's numbers, 4 and 1. 4 plus 1 equals 5. The same as the number written on the door. But it wouldn't open just yet. Only 3 to 5 people can pass through one numbered door. The door needed at least one more person. Who would that be? Get back! His voice shook, but the knife he held to Clover's throat made his words a command. Ace took 2, then 3 steps back. No, farther! More than that. Go all the way back. Slowly, Ace did what he was told. The ninth man's lips curled into a cruel, twisted smile. That was when Junpei understood his plan. Clover's 4 and Ace's 1, added to the ninth man's 9. 4 plus 1 plus 9 is 14. 1 plus 4 equals 5. In other words... Thank God you were all so cooperative. Now I can get out of this nightmare. He pressed his own hand against the scanner panel. A third asterisk appeared on the screen. He dropped his hand to the lever on the side of the device and pulled. The door opened with a heavy metallic groan. He let go of Clover. Wait! Junpei leapt toward the ninth man, but he wasn't fast enough. The man shoved Clover and hopped through the door. Okay. Have a good one, guys. I'm going off ahead now. Well then, goodbye. He raised his hand and waved, a twisted smirk on his face. Then he was gone. The door ground shut with a dull clang of metal on metal. Clover, are you all right? Snake ran to Clover's side as she lay on the floor. Yeah, I'm fine. She climbed unsteadily to her feet, and once there, leaned heavily on Snake's shoulder for support. Junpei ran to the door. The others followed him. Several pairs of hands grabbed hold of the handles and pulled. They grunted and strained, but... Shit! It won't budge. That was when Lotus, the dancer, spoke. Her voice was quiet. Do you hear something? Like what? Like some sort of beeping. Junpei pressed his ear against the cold metal of the door. The others did the same. You're right. I can hear it too. What is it? Then they heard something else. It was the ninth man. Shit! Why isn't it stopping? God damn it! You lied. Lied? This wasn't supposed to happen. This is wrong. This is wrong. His voice shook with fear. Safe on the outside, they stepped back from the door and looked at one another. What is happening in there? Oh. Night-night. Stand by. Hope it didn't. BRB. Okay, we're back. What is happening in there? Oh, open the door. Please. I'm begging you. Help me. Please get me out of here. Get me out of here. Junpei grabbed hold of the device. He slammed his hand on the scanner panel. Nothing happened. Why didn't it register him? He looked at the display where the asterisk had shown up. It said, engaged. Oh my god, there's no time left. Listen, I was lied to. He lied to me. He put me in here. It was him. He killed me. It was him. Told you I'm not gonna... Oh. The explosion rocked the room. Instinctively, they ducked and stood up slowly when they realized there was no danger. No one spoke. Silence filled the room. In that silence, the electronic tone that echoed across the room sounded as loud as a gunshot. All eyes turned toward it. It had come from the device mounted next to the door. The display changed from engaged to vacant. Let's see if we can open it. 7. The mountain. Swallowed hard. Junpei nodded and placed his hand on the scanner panel. A red asterisk appeared on the LCD panel. The device had registered Junpei's bracelet number, 5. His was not enough, however. At least 2 more people were needed. Junpei asked, which pair? I get to decide which people. Has to add up to 9 for the digital root to shake out. Let's do Santa and June. Santa and June, you think you could give me a hand here? The pun was a little too on the nose, but the mood was still grim. Both Santa and June lifted their left hands silently. He verified, and she followed suit. 5 plus 3 plus 6 is 14. 1 plus 4 is 5. They'd fulfilled the condition. If they were to pull the lever on the side... Are you guys ready? I'm gonna open it. Junpei grabbed the lever and looked back over his shoulder. They stiffened and nodded. Junpei nodded back and set his mouth in a grim line. Then he slowly lowered the lever. There was a metallic groan and the door slid open. A breath of air drifted out of it, carrying a stench that nearly made them gag. Junpei grimaced and put a hand over his mouth. Oh my god. Good god. Lotus and Ace shuddered. Seven grunted. Whoa, that's pretty bad. Even Santa's voice shook. He blew up. It appeared that Santa was right. The hallway on the other side of the door was splattered with chunks of torn flesh and dark red blood. June's shriek echoed across the room. It had come from June. It was June's shriek. Then her strength left her, and she dropped. As Junpei turned to catch her, the door groaned shut. She crumpled to the floor. June, you okay? Junpei dropped to his knees and put his arm around her shoulders. That was when he noticed. Her whole body was feverish. She was radiating intense heat. What the hell? Where'd this fever come from? June didn't answer. Her face looked like wax, and her whole body began to shake. I should note, I have just the instinct to do it, because in games like this, whenever there is voice acting, and the dialogue just has 3 dots, the actor always has to do something. They have to have a sound file that goes with each text file. So ... always goes, ugh. So, sorry, we're gonna be doing the anime noise. Alright, let's just rest for a minute, okay? You think you can walk? She nodded weakly. Junpei lifted June to her feet and guided her to a nearby chair. Here we go. As gently as he could, he set her down in it. How are you feeling? Are you all right? She nodded, and as she did, a single huge tear rolled down the side of her face. Why? Why did this happen? Her voice cracked, broken by misery and grief and choked by sobs. Why did this happen? Junpei spun around. Do any of you know what the fuck is going on here? Who's Zero? What's this Nonary game? Come on, anybody? Anything. What the hell is going on? What are we doing here? No one spoke. Ace, Snake, Santa, Clover, Seven, and Lotus. They simply stood there. 7 pairs of downcast eyes, 7 grim lines for mouths. June's body shook with silent sob. They slowed as the minutes ticked by, and eventually, they stopped. Then suddenly, in the cold, heavy silence that had enveloped them like a thick fog, a bell began to ring. The clock in the central hall. 7, 8, 9. 10 times. And then on the 10th ring, it stopped. The sound of the bell faded away into silence. It's 10 o'clock then. Ace said what each one of them had been thinking. That means it's been an hour since Zero's little announcement. Seven's deep voice echoed across the room. Fuck! I've had enough of this crap. Santa leapt to his feet, his fists clenched. How long are we gonna pussyfoot around like this? We've only got 8 hours until this time limit Zero was going on about is up. Let's get going already. Go, go! Santa's outburst fell on deaf ears. No one seemed to agree with him. They stared back at him, their eyes blank, and their faces tired. Finally, Lotus spoke. No, I refuse. I'm not going to end up like him. Him? You mean the 9th man? Of course. Who else? In his mind's eye, Junpei saw the corpse again. The dark, reddish-black pool of blood, scattered pieces of flesh. organs strewn across the floor like the blossoming of a grotesque flower. The explosion that had torn through his body had been powerful. The ninth man's neck had been twisted at an odd angle. Junpei suspected the detonation had thrown him against the wall. Half of his face was crushed, and the other half was covered in blood. Most of his abdomen had been emptied either by the explosion or by gravity. He had landed on his back, and stark white ribs jutted up out of his chest like the legs of some sort of macabre crab. Junpei felt something flip in his stomach. I think he just screwed up. Eyebrows went up, and Santa continued. He probably set off some sort of trap, and that killed him. I'm not going to screw up like that. I'm getting out of here alive. Whatever Snake was laughing at, Santa did not find particularly humorous. What's so goddamn funny? Oh, my apologies. You were just so very confident. I couldn't help myself. What the fuck? I think you've mistaken the situation. Huh? The ninth man's death. It had nothing to do with the trap, or at least not the sort of trap you imagine it did. Then he broke one of Zero's rules. That was why he died. Quite simple if you think about it. Huh? You still don't? All right. How about you take a moment and think back to what Zero said? Specifically, what did he say about the number of people? He said only 3 to 5 people can pass through one numbered door, right? And after that? You've forgotten the relevant part. What did Zero say? Santa furrowed his brow in thought. Junpei thought back. Zero said that everyone who verified had to go. All those who enter must leave, and all who enter must contribute. Right? I think it was something like that. Point of order, Zero didn't say it, Junpei. You did. You read the words aloud. They were 0 words, so I will grant you that. But you're not remembering back to what Zero said. It's just driving me nuts. It's just driving me nuts. Whatever it was, it means that groups of less than 3 or more than 5 can't go through. That is correct. A gold star for you, Junpei. Snake inclined his head toward Junpei. The ninth man, however, broke that rule. He tried to pass through a numbered door by himself. That was why he was executed. And Zero's watching us from somewhere, making sure we don't break any rules. Oh, I'm not so sure of that. Why not? Because this execution system is entirely automatic. You didn't notice. There's no need for him to monitor us. What do you mean? Snake looked at Seven with what could only be described as pity and sighed. Very well. I see it must be me who tells you. I've waited long enough, I suppose. I had hoped Zero might spare me the trouble, but that seems increasingly unlikely. He couldn't see them, of course, but perhaps Snake sensed the confused eyes upon him. When Ace spoke, he gave words to everyone else's thoughts. Do you know something? Well, I know a great many things, but yes. What is it you know? Here. Snake removed a card from the pocket of his jacket. With a flourish, he presented it to Ace, who took a close look at it and spoke. Come on now, what's the point of giving me this? Give me that! Santa snatched the card from Ace, but his expression of disgust quickly turned to one of confusion. Huh? The hell is this? Seven tugged it out of Santa's hands. Huh. I see. The card went from Seven to Lotus, from Lotus to June, and finally, to Junpei. He looked at it and understood. This is Braille. Braille, the written language of the blind. The card was covered with small, embossed bumps. Junpei could recognize it, but he certainly couldn't read it. Sorry, guys, I can't read this. Junpei handed the card back to Snake, who nodded at him with a small smirk. Okay, that was fun. What's so important about that card? I found it in my pocket. I can only assume it's a message from Zero. From Zero? A message? What does it say? Suddenly, everyone was crowding around Snake, desperate to hear what the message said. Santa especially looked as if he were about to grab hold of Snake and shake the answers from him. Snake raised his hand. Calm down now. No need to panic. You don't need it. You don't need to force me. I'll read it. Junpei swallowed hard and waited for him to start. He was not the only one. Presently, Snake began to read, his voice calm. His fingers glided over the tiny bumps as he spoke. Bracelet number 2. Since you are not blessed with sight, I shall bless you, and only you, with information. I shall tell you of the function of the red, of the dead, and of the bracelet. The red is a recognition device. It will verify your number. Beside every numbered door, you will find a red. The dead is the deactivation device. It does exactly what it says. Once you have passed through the numbered door, you must use the dead to stop the detonator in your bracelet. But perhaps you are wondering, what does this detonator detonate? I am afraid this may be something of a surprise. I have placed a small bomb inside of you and the people whom you are about to meet. You swallowed it while you were unconscious. I have no doubt that by the time you read this note, the bomb will have passed your stomach and found its way to your small intestine. In other words, you will be unable to regurgitate it. I suggest you do not try. As I mentioned before, the bracelet on your left hand contains a detonator. Think of it as a remote fuse or timer for the bomb in your body. There is only one condition which will cause it to detonate. That condition is that you enter a numbered door. Once you have done so, the timer will activate no matter who you may be. You will have 81 seconds. If after that time the detonator has not been deactivated, it will send a signal to the bomb in your body, instructing it to explode. In order to deactivate the detonator, every person who verified their number at the red must also verify their numbers at the dead. Once all numbers have been verified by the dead, you need only pull the lever at its side and the countdown will cease. Anyone who does not verify their number at the red will find themselves unable to verify their number at the dead. That is to say, if you should pass through a numbered door without first verifying your number at the red, 81 seconds. If you should pass through a numbered door without first verifying your number at the red, in 81 seconds, you will be dead. You must also keep in mind that the numbered doors will close automatically after 9 seconds have passed. So long as the door is open, the dead will not function. You would do well to remember this. Lastly, let us discuss how to remove the bracelets. There are only 2 ways to do so. 1. You escape from this ship. 2. Your heart rate reaches 0. Sorry about the text messages. In other words, once the bracelet is taken outside the confines of this ship, or detects that its wearer's heartbeat has fallen to 0, it will shut down automatically. Guys, killing me. There is no other way to remove your bracelet. If you attempt to force it off or disable the detonator, the bomb within you will immediately explode. This is all the information which I can impart to you. How you choose to use it is for you to decide. If used wisely, you can eliminate those who might be a danger to you. For a time, you would be able to control your fate. I wish you the best of luck. Snake finished reading and carefully returned the card to his pocket. The message had been lengthy, but its meaning was clear. Only those who verified their numbers at the red could pass through the numbered door. Teams could not increase or decrease their numbers. The reds, deads, and bracelets enforced the rules. They were the judge, jury, and executioner. In defiance of Zero's suggestions, both Santa and Seven put fingers down their throats and began to gag. The rest stiffened, Some touched their stomachs. Some simply stared at their bracelets. Junpei gingerly touched his stomach. There was a bomb inside his body. The thought of it made him queasy. His stomach felt oddly hollow and his legs were weak. Why had Zero designed such a ludicrous game? Junpei looked over at the others. All right, I'm going to ask one more time. Do any of you know anything about Zero? They were all silent, each person waiting to hear what the others would say. Finally, Santa spoke. Actually, I saw him. I saw Zero when I got grabbed. I didn't see his face, though. Son of a bitch was wearing some kind of gas mask. What the hell? Come on, guys, give me something. You know, like surprise or something? Instead, it was Santa who looked surprised. There was a moment of silence, and then everyone spoke at once. Yeah, I saw him too. Me too. He was wearing a gas mask. The stories were sorted out. The truth became clear. All of their stories, the same. They had been abducted at home at midnight. The person claiming to be Zero had worn a mask. There had been white smoke, and then each person had passed out. When they awoke, they had found themselves on D deck in a room with a 3-level bunk bed. Only 7 stories seemed to lack the detail of the others. Oh, me? Yeah, well, mine was just like the rest of yours. That was all he had said. It had occurred to Junpei at that time that it sounded somewhat strange, but he didn't press the issue. He hadn't done so because there was something that struck him as even stranger. That was the mystery, the relationship between Snake and Clover. And that we will explore next time. Thanks for playing, or at least for watching me play. And I've finished saving and finished playing. See you next time.